Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is what's new in Dynamics 365 Supply Chain Management, Wave 1 2025. My name is Ashley Deshanko, and I will be your moderator and one of your presenters today. So presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Nicole Joyce, a Principal Fast Track Solution Architect. And then again, my name is Ashley. I'm also a Principal Solution Architect for the Fast Track team. And as customary, we'll begin with a riddle of the day to get your brains working. So our riddle today is brought to you by Copilot, and it is, why did the sun go to school during summer break? And if you think you know the answer, go ahead and put your guess in the chat, and then we'll reveal the answer at the end of the presentation. All right, so now I'm going to hand it over to Nicole to walk us through our agenda.
Great. Thanks, Ashley. So if you joined these What's New Tech Talks, this agenda is pretty standard. We're going to go through how to keep up with the new features that we release. Then we will talk about some of the features that we want to highlight that are in this Wave 1 2025 timeframe. And then we will also go through some of the features that we are deprecating in this timeframe as well. And then, of course, we will have time for Q&A at the end of the session. So as Ashley mentioned, please put any questions that come up throughout in the Q&A panel on the side, and we will get to them at the end. So let's start with how do we keep up with new features that Microsoft is releasing. So we do have 2 waves per year that our engineering team works in. We are in that Wave 1 timeframe right now. So that's our April to September. And then the Wave 2 covers the other portion of the year. That's October to March. Those are kind of the general availability dates of the releases in those waves. So within those 2 waves, each of them has what we consider 2 service updates. So that gives us 4 versions per year. One of them is considered kind of the major release. That's like the Wave 1 or Wave 2 release that you may hear of. The alternating one, right, in the Wave time frame is more of consider it a minor release, right? Typically does not have as many major features and functionality being released. It's more going to be focused on bug fixes, security improvements, those type of things that we're also starting to see roll out in the proactive quality updates as well. So there may be some features in the minor updates, but not usually as many as the other one. Last calendar year, when we moved from doing 7 updates per year to only 4, we also updated the ability to do consecutive pauses from 3 down to just 1. So now that we have the 4 updates per year, you can do 1 pause kind of in between. So if you do the math, you do have to take at least 2 updates essentially in a calendar year. So you can pause the one in between. So if you've got a go live happening and one of our scheduled releases is kind of falling within that time frame of preparing or stabilizing after a go live, that would be a great reason to go in and pause, right, the update that we are releasing, and then you aren't required to take another one as the next release comes out. But you can no longer do more than 1 consecutive pause. So let's also look then at what is the time frame. And apologies, this is not Wave 2. This is Wave 1. But I promise the dates are right. So the major release for this wave was 10.0.43. That was generally available back in mid-March. And we are actually now just past the, call it minor release in this wave, the 10.0.44 version just went generally available a week or 2 ago in early June. So we are in that time frame now where kind of the rest of Wave 1 is just leading up to the Wave 2 general release in mid-September. And actually, you'll be able to take it as early as end of July for preview. So if you're interested in that next kind of major release in Wave 2, you'll be able to start looking at it in a month or 6 weeks from now. The link at the bottom of the slide, and we do always publish a PDF version of this slide deck with the recording to our community site, and the YouTube channel will have the video as well. So you'll be able to click any of the links that we have embedded here. But this is our kind of rolling calendar of these release dates that you can find, right, for preview availability, general availability dates, as well as those kind of auto update windows, right? If you're not kind of selecting the releases and taking them as they become available, there are some auto update dates within these timeframes as well, right, where you're kind of forced to take those unless you're doing a pause. So this is your best reference to bookmark and look at it often to keep up with these dates. Last slide in this section, I believe, is just some other resources that can help you, other than these tech talks, right, kind of keep up with what's new and what Microsoft is releasing in the product. So the first one is our release plan. And again, all of these headers have links that you'll be able to click. But these release plans are released at the beginning of each wave, and they detail the features and maybe net new modules that are added in the product. They're maintained throughout the wave, so they are kind of a living, breathing document. And one of the things that we always like to point out here is that when you go to this link for the release plans, and Ashley's going to link it in the chat for us, but that is the one that allows you to filter on the left-hand panel by the product. So you can go in there and look for Dynamics 365 supply chain management. You can also see Power Platform and all of our other business applications in there. But what it will allow you to do is kind of by module or by area, right, such as manufacturing, that you would be able to go in there and see the features that are on the product engineering roadmap for those areas, along with some dates, some descriptions, maybe even some photos or videos about the features that are planned, with some links out to the documentation on the Learn site as well. And one of the really nice features is if you're looking for something in particular, like say our quality management functionality that we're going to be talking about later in this presentation that's new, you can go find that on the release planner tool, and you can actually add that to what we call like your release plan in that tool, and it just gives you the ability to track the individual kind of features that you are interested in for your business, right? We know there is a lot. These release plan documents that we release are very lengthy and they're very detailed. But if you're just interested in a couple of specific features, that release planner tool is a great way to go in there, kind of pin them right to your own release plan. And then you can kind of sift out all the noise and just follow those features that you're interested in. So we always like to call that out. Okay, so the other thing we have is the what's new or changed articles. So these are the ones that are actually published on our Learn site. So these, again, will be for any of the Dynamics or Power Platform products. And so they'll include kind of a list of what's new, but also links to the specific product documentation for those new features and how to use them. So then we also have blog posts that we publish from time to time. These aren't on necessarily the same specific like release cadence as our release plans and our what's new documentation, but these are more lengthy articles that might discuss a particular like major feature that's being released, and they're typically released by the product engineers. So these are great to look for. These are also posted on our community channel where we post these tech talks. And then, of course, the Tech Talk. So you're in the What's New one right now, but we also do a lot of specific deep dives on features or new functionality so that we can get into, technical discussion or functional application, whatever it may be. So always good to subscribe right to the Tech Talks notifications for when we schedule new ones and sign up if it's an area of interest for you. Okay, so let's switch over to some of the more exciting stuff. We're going to cover some of the feature highlights in this wave one. So I'm going to hand it over to Ashley to get us started.
All right, thanks, Nicole. So let's start with some new features in the demand planning app. And these enhancements are going to help you boost the accuracy of your demand forecasts. So for example, perfect, thanks, Nicole. There are changes to how demand can be allocated, and this allows for assortment planning. And I'm going to group that one together with another feature that's now available, and that's auto detection for seasonality patterns. You can now also establish periods during which the forecast calculations that are set to run continuously, they won't update their baseline forecasts with time freeze periods. And then lastly, building on the previous enhancements, which we allow for external input signals, we can now define multiple input signals for a single forecast. And these new features, they're enabled by default. So if you have the demand planning app, you can test them out once you're on the latest release. And then in reference to the business process catalog, these features sit within the forecast to plan process to help conduct supply chain planning. Moving on, now we're in the source to pay business process area, and we have a few enhancements here. So let's start with the new contract lifecycle management, or CLM for short, integration. And so this feature supports out-of-the-box rules and integration points for interacting with external CLM systems for purchase agreements and non-disclosure agreements. Those are the two documents that are available out of the box, but this is extendable for other types of documents or other flows that you may need. And I like to think of this as a common integration framework that makes CLM integrations much easier, kind of like our manufacturing execution system integration in the production module. And as I mentioned before, this sits within the source to pay business process in the contract goods and services business process area. So still in the procurement area, let's talk about the supplier communication agent, which we've talked about in the past, but now with the .44 release, it's in public preview. We've also recently published two, maybe more tech talks about this agent. One is about the agent itself and its capabilities, and another is dedicated to installing and configuring the agent. So if you do want a deeper dive on this, I highly recommend checking those out. But in this tech talk, I'll just quickly review some highlights that have come out recently. So the supplier communication agent automates manual tasks like reading emails about PO changes from your suppliers and then also replying to them. And the goal for this agent is to increase the procurement team's overall productivity as it saves people time in reading emails, responding to suppliers, and sending those emails on your behalf. And again, this agent applies to the source to pay business process in the area of procure goods and services.
All right. Thanks, Ashley. So we're going to move to our inventory to deliver business process, and we'll start with the new advanced quality management capabilities, which minimize reliance on third-party services. So to help fulfill regulatory requirements and drive our quality excellence, our new quality management features allow organizations to drive continuous improvement and mitigate risk, optimize their test strategies, digitize their manufacturing for precision and compliance, and boost product quality and user productivity with a feedback-driven approach to quality management. So in our business process catalog, these capabilities fall within our managed inventory quality business process area, again, in inventory to deliver. So next we have our supply chain traceability add-in. Some of the features for supply chain traceability have now been made available in preview starting in 10.0.44. That's the release that just went GA earlier this month. And these enhance our inventory to deliver process through several features that we have, including we have simplified installation now, so there's no configuration of the Microsoft Entra ID needed during installation. So makes the setup of supply chain traceability faster and easier. We also have a tracked component policy. So this new policy helps to better control the integration with manufacturing processes. We then have better integration to reverse manufacturing. So you can now revert packing lists and report as finished transactions in the system to support disassembly workflows. And then finally, we have support for the manufacturing single output scenario. So the manual input for consumption association is no longer required, which simplifies the process for the single output manufacturing scenarios. And we do want to note that there is ongoing work to integrate this supply chain traceability capability with the quality management functionality that we just talked about. So stay tuned for announcements about the integration between quality management and supply chain traceability. And within the business process catalog, this functionality falls actually within our what we consider analyze warehouse operations business process area in that inventory to deliver process. And that's because a lot of what supply chain traceability is used for is doing that kind of item tracing upstream and downstream and analyzing our inventory. Okay. Then we have our warehouse management version 4 of our mobile app. So this is a significant upgrade in the platform for our mobile app technology. So some of the modern features and improvements, they were designed to enhance the user experience and the operational reliability in the warehouse. The new platform is faster, it's more reliable and secure, and it's more fun. The users are now able to set their own color and sound themes in the app, bringing some more joy into the workplace. So I know that this will be fun for those of you who may be warehouse managers on the call, starting to hear a lot of different sounds from the mobile app other than just our traditional kind of ping that was available. There's a lot of options now. So last month, we did host a Tech Talk that went through the details of the update. We are targeting a public preview release of the app this month. We've gone through a private preview of the app already. So it is getting ready for public preview. And then we are slated to do a general availability release this summer. Of course, always subject to change based on how the preview is progressing and the feedback that we get. But you'll be able to download the new app in all the app stores and test it in parallel. It is a separate app, so you can have the current version 3 of the app running, as well as this new version 4. So when it is released to public preview, please go in, download it, kick the tires, and give us your feedback. There is a formal way to give us feedback on the app. And if we look at our business process catalog reference, the mobile app falls within our manage warehouse operations business process area in inventory to deliver. Okay. So those are some of the big new features we wanted to highlight from this wave for supply chain management. So those are always the fun things to talk about, but we don't always do the best job of also highlighting some of the features that are going away, right? So we want to go through a few of those with you now, and I will turn it back over to Ashley.
All right, the not so fun part. All right, so the first one, we announced this in a previous wave, but as of the .41 update, the legacy framework for warehouse inventory transactions will be deprecated for internal warehouse operations. And the reason we've done this is for better performance. But from an end user perspective, those using the warehouse mobile app, they will not know any difference. Their operations will remain completely the same. Where you might notice a difference is if you are used to looking at, or if you've built reports off of the Invent Trans table, this is where you might see some changes, and you'll need to update any reporting that you have pointing there. Now it should point to the warehouse inventory transactions table to see things like serial numbers, batch numbers. Existing customers, though, they're going to be able to continue using the scenario after 41. The catch here is that new features and bug fixes for this are only going to be delivered for warehouse-specific inventory transactions. And about 1 year after the release of 41, support for this scenario will be removed, and all customers will be required to move to warehouse-specific inventory transactions. So I highly suggest that you move over. You don't wait till this deadline to start doing that transition and that test.
Yeah, and Ashley, just to clarify, that time frame is coming up in wave 2 in the 10.0.45. So that's the year after we announced this. So this is looming, right? So this is why we wanted to leave this reminder in here, even though we have covered this deprecation announcement before.
All right, the next one we have is the work creation number sequence. And this is being deprecated because of potential conflicts. So in the past, there were 2 number sequences that were used to generate values for the work creation number. And those were, if you remember, it's the work creation ID and the work creation number. So now it's the new work creation ID number sequence that's available as a replacement for the work creation number. So for all currently available versions of SCM, you should always use the work creation ID number sequence to generate work creation identification numbers. That work creation number sequence is still present in the demo data, but it's no longer used by the system. And production data doesn't include that number sequence. So just double check in the warehouse management parameters that you are using the work creation ID number sequence.
So we have a couple of more things that are kind of technical, but important to point out, we think. So this next one is about the process guide framework. So what we are doing is removing the ability to turn off the use process guide option for 2 of our mobile device menu items. So why are we doing that? It's because the process guide framework is our standard way of extending our warehouse mobile app workflows. So you have enhanced kind of extensibility support by using that framework. The 2 mobile device menu items that it applies for is your adjustment out and the spot cycle counting work creation processes. So if you have mobile device menu items configured using those specific work creation processes, that process guide framework, if you're extending these, can no longer be disabled. And that will be in the 10.0.45, that will be on by default. And then not until a couple of releases later next year in 10.0.47 will this become a mandatory thing. So this is kind of just now being announced. Okay, and then we have the rename item number preview feature. So it was a preview feature that we released that allowed users to edit the item number field in Dynamics supply chain management. So we are really not deprecating it because it never was released, but we are not going to release this preview feature, and this is going to go away. The reason is data consistency data integrity, the potential for data corruption. This specific kind of key field is typically used in integration scenarios, right? A lot of things that could kind of go awry if you're going in and manually editing the item number. So what do you do instead? The recommendation is that you use alternate methods that you were probably using before this preview feature was there, which would be deleting the item, creating a new one with the new name, renaming attributes of the item or search names, product names, other item-related fields instead of that key field of the actual item number. Okay, so we removed this preview feature in 10.0.44. Again, that's the one that just went generally available earlier this month, and it will not be replaced because of those data integrity issues we talked about. Bummer. I know people have been very upset about this, so I apologize in advance if people are leaving angry comments in the chat. So speaking of the chat, we will go through any of the open questions. So Ashley, do we have anything that we can help answer?
Yes, we do. I've been trying to reply to some in the chat, but let me read some loud. Okay, we have a couple. I'm going to group them related to the supplier communication agent. So the first question, is it only available in the US? I think, Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong. It's available in all regions. I know some of the documentation says some features is only rolled out to the US Azure region, but the agent itself should be available in all regions.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
All right, next question. Can we install the supplier communication agent in cloud-hosted environment? I think UDE, also same thing, or do we need a sandbox? I believe this is also, you need to do it in a sandbox. It can't be on a developer environment.
Yes, yeah, like a tier 1.
Okay, next one. Is there a plan to include different order types, not only purchase orders, on the supplier communication agent, since we also engage with our suppliers or contract manufacturers through transfer orders? That's a great question.
Yeah, that's something we can take back to the team, right, that developed this agent. I know there's obviously, a big focus right now from all of our engineering teams, not even just in supply chain management, but across all of our products on AI and on these agent scenarios, right? So this is kind of the first one that landed in our supply chain space. I know we're also working on like the sales side of this, right, Ashley? So potentially transfer orders are considered there, but when you think about transfers, right, they're kind of outgoing and incoming. So we can definitely take that feedback to the team that built this supplier communication agent.
Yep. And I've also in the chat provided the link to the TechTalk that we did on the supplier communication agent, because that might have also been a question that the PMs answered in that session. So check it out. It's a great tech talk anyways, even if you make it to the Q&A and they didn't answer, still definitely worthwhile. All right, let's see if there's anything else related to supplier communications.
Yeah, there's a great, it's probably in that tech talk, but there's a video and stuff as well if you want to see this in action kind of without going in and setting it up yourself. But so definitely check out the tech talks.
All right, another question. So not
There is. We did the tech talk last month, so the PMs walk through kind of the details of, what's new, what are some of the, good to know, right, as you're going through this transition. So we can provide the link in the chat for that as well.
Awesome. All right. Next question. So this is related to that deprecated work creation number sequence. So if a client is not using that work creation ID number in production, what will happen if they don't switch?
Nothing that isn't happening today, right? Essentially, it's just it's kind of a legacy, I'll call it, number sequence that's been in the system. And there's a potential, right, that if you have those two things, right, like the work creation ID and this work creation number, like set as the same sequence ID, that it potentially has a conflict, right? That those two things can almost step on each other in some of the warehouse management processes. So I would switch it or just remove the number sequence that you're using for the old one, the work creation number. The work creation ID is the new one that's being utilized by the system, but nothing will really happen, right? Because all of our logic now, I think Ashley mentioned in the details of that slide, all of the logic is using, let me go back to the slide. All of the logic is using the new sequence anyway.
Okay, are any of the Android devices previously supported going to continue to be supported with the new warehouse app?
Yes.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any change in device supportability, right?
That is correct. What there is like a gotcha on you have to be on like the latest or relatively recent operating Android system, because if you're on a really old version, the new app, like, you can't download it. So those details are covered in the TechTalk, which I hopefully put a link to in the chat.
And then another question, do we have an exact date on when the new app is available?
We don't, because in the Tech Talk last month, we were shooting for June 1st. And so I know we've gotten a lot of questions, right, after June 1st came and went, and it was not available in the app stores yet, about when it would be coming. So the best answer I can give you right now is that we are still trying to get it out this month, in June. The reason it's hung up is because we have to get through some legal requirements checked off before we can like release this to the app stores. So that's what's holding it up. It's not anything about the functionality or bug fixes or anything. We're just trying to get through the right legal process to get it published. So hopefully still this month. I believe August was the targeted general availability date. You'll see here it just says mid-2025. Again, all of that is kind of subject to how the preview continues to go as it gets into public preview and some of the feedback that we get.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. All right. We have some questions around the deprecated rename item number.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions is there any new product function to be expected in the near future to replace this?
No, we will not replace this.
And I think there's a question, I think you answered this, Nicole, but maybe we can restate. What can customers do to rename their item numbers when this feature is gone?
Yeah, the recommendation that's stated in the deprecation announcement is just to use alternate ways of renaming your existing item, such as renaming attributes of the item, renaming the search name, renaming the product name, or other item-related fields, or if you can, delete the item and just create a new item with the new name. Those are kind of your work around scenarios, if you will. That's how always you would have done this before we released this preview feature for renaming anyway. So continue to do that.
All right, next one. What is the timeline to integrate quality and the new traceability app? I think that's what the question is.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the team was really working to get the integration in for the 10.0.44 GA date, which was the one earlier this month. I don't know that work is fully complete, but if they were close for that, then I would expect wave 2 for sure, that we would see the integration scenario. So it's not far off. It's actively being worked on.
Lots of comments wanting to know more about MCP. I would say stay tuned for that. Probably have another tech talk coming out. I don't know if it falls within the scope of what's new in SCM, so maybe we'll ask you to wait until a tech talk comes out on MCP for D365.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that's the model context protocol, right, that Microsoft has adopted along with a lot of other companies, right, for basically AI agents, right, and communicating with systems. So yes, that's a little broader than the topic that we're in. It's relevant because we have been talking about agents, but I'm sure, as Ashley said, there will be some specific tech talks that dive into that.
All right. Another question. How does the new advanced quality feature work hand in hand with warehouse management?
So essentially from a WMS perspective, the connection points are kind of the same, right? With your being able to set up like your item sampling, being able to do quality checks on the mobile device, or being able to generate quality orders and physically direct product, right? Like as it's being receipted or whatever into a like separate quality location. None of that is really changing. Although the WMS part of how we interact with quality is largely the same. This quality management functionality is more focused on the, we'll call the inventory management piece of it, right? And the actual testing and being able to meet the regulatory requirements with some of these industry standards, right? It's really important for some industries, right? Medical device manufacturing, all kinds of things, that we have some more advanced, quality mechanisms in the system. Because what was happening previously, right, especially for customers in some of those industries who would try to use our quality inventory and warehouse management, is that it just wasn't robust or sophisticated enough on the quality piece of it for them to be able to fully utilize our core products. So they were reliant on some third-party QMS systems, right, to be able to do some of the very technical and regulatory compliance pieces. And then they were maybe feeding some data back into Dynamics, maybe not. But that's really where we're plugging the gap with this new advanced quality management.
All right. Let's see. What else do we have? Okay. When the new warehouse mobile app version does come out, is it a requirement to move to that version?
It will be at some point, right? So if you recall, not long ago, right, maybe last year, we went to the new major version 3, right, of the warehouse mobile app. Again, that was, security related change, but it was on the same old platform. This is actually like a platform shift. So we will have a period of kind of coexistence. Like I said, these are 2 different apps that will show up in the App Store. So you'll be able to essentially download them both, run them side by side, connect them to the same system. But there will be a period of, you'll start to see some guidance from us, right, on moving from that old version 3, old platform. Like at some point, we will no longer support that. We will remove those from the app stores. But of course, there will be at least that year, right, plus runway of us announcing deprecation of that version. So you'll have plenty of heads up, starting with now, hopefully, that this new platform is out there. And I think maybe one thing we didn't explicitly say, but is important to say, and we do talk about it if you go watch the Tech Talk on this, is that from a UI perspective, like an end user is not going to notice any difference in this new app. It looks the same. Other than if they change their colors and stuff with some of the new themes. But from the workflows that we support, right, and kind of what the UI looks like, I mean, largely it should be like seamless to the end user. And then for the developer, right, or the configurator, nothing is changing really on the back end either, right? We didn't change anything about how you configure mobile device menus and menu items in the backend UI, and we haven't changed anything about like the X++ code. So if you've got extensibility on top of the version 3 app, that is just going to transition to version 4. So nothing is changing there. I guess really technically or functionally with how that operates today. It's really just a platform that's, like we said, it's faster. It's more secure than the old platform. It's more reliable as far as network resilience, things like that. So really, all it's doing is giving us some benefits. And maybe the biggest benefit that we have here is the new platform will allow us to develop new features faster than we could with the old platform. So some of the things that have been in the backlog that are, highly voted for the warehouse mobile app, things like let me capture a picture with the device camera, those will be easier for us to address now on the new platform. So do not assume that any of those things that are feature sets that have been in the backlog are coming with this first version of this platform. That's not what it's for, right? We're just releasing the new platform, essentially kind of call it a one-to-one, other than, some of these new UI things that are available. But some of the features that have been requested that are in our backlog will now hopefully be coming at a better clip of release now that we have the new platform to work on. That was a long answer, but I hope it answered some questions that may or may not be in the chat about the app.
Okay, we got another question about the advanced quality management. Is it similar to the AX for pharma, or is it something totally brand new?
I believe it was an acquisition of QMS functionality. I don't know that it's specifically AX for pharma.
Yeah, me neither, to be honest. But yeah, it did come from an ISP solution.
Yeah, it's not net new, something we built in-house.
Ooh, okay, we're getting a lot of answers to the riddle, and Betty, we're getting it right. Somebody's
they couldn't see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody has an interesting answer that's not our answer, but I like it too. I'll share that after.
Okay. Well, are we ready to move?
I think so.
To the answer? Okay. Take it away, Ashley.
Ooh, I get to answer. Okay, all right. Yeah. The answer to our riddle. Why did the sun go to school during summer break? Because it wanted to be brighter. Which a lot of you got that answer. I'm going to read one that I thought was really clever. Because it didn't want to fall, like the season fall, behind. Haha. Thank you, Nicholas. That was a really great answer.
I like that. Yes, and thank you, Copilot, for our riddle, for coming up with this. Ashley, do you want to wrap us up?
Yep. So thanks to our presenters today. Thank you, Nicole, and to you, our audience, for attending our Tech Talk today. We hope you have a great rest of the day.